Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the third day of the Life Ready, Work Ready programme. We're here today focusing on the clean energy sector, and we've got three speakers who have kindly given up their time to join us today. We have changed the running order slightly with Gemma from EEEGR coming to talk to us today, supported by Esme Thornton. We do expect the two other guests to be joining us at a later stage, so there will be a little slight change to that running order. If you do have questions for the speakers today, please use the Q&A function that you'll see at the bottom of the screen. There will be 5 minutes at the end of each speaker's talk where they'll be able to engage with those questions. Also, as you all have seen from the programme, there is also another 5 minutes that's been apportioned for a panel section where we'll be able to pose questions to all of the speakers that we have today. Thank you again for attending. I'm going to just hand over now to Gemma, who's going to be kicking us off with the first talk. So thank you, Gemma.
Thanks, Glenn. Good evening, good afternoon, everyone. I'm just going to share my screen, so bear with me just a second. Okay, so hopefully you can all see that, and hopefully somebody will tell me if they can't. If not, I'll continue carrying on until someone says otherwise. So as I said, good afternoon. My name's Gemma Head. I'm Skills for Energy Programme Manager and Company Secretary at the East of England Energy Group, or EEEGR. Esme is going to be joining me as well. So Esme Thornton is also on the line, and she will pick up just towards the end of my presentation. So I'll run through some bits and pieces, and then Esme will pick up where I leave off. So the East of England Energy Group, as I say, that's EEEGR. We are a not-for-profit trade body representing just over 200 member companies within the energy sector and the supply chain. We work with other organisations as well, so not just limited to our membership base, but our membership includes organisations such as Scottish Power Renewables, Vattenfall, EDF, some of the really big players across the industry, right through into the supply chain as well. So anything through stationary suppliers through to hotels and different organisations that see an opportunity with working with the energy sector. So we, as EEEGR, we run a number of different events which offer business networking opportunities and ultimately opportunities for people to get in the same room as each other, work together and hopefully win contracts and do business is the ultimate aim. Obviously, our activity has had to shift a little bit in the current world. Usually we'd be running big face-to-face events. Obviously, that's not possible just now. So we've had to switch everything online. So very similar to the event that you guys are all now joining today. So we are having to do things quite differently, but nonetheless, we're still very active and very supportive of the industry and encouraging its development within the region. My role is slightly different. So as I said at the beginning of the presentation, I'm Skills for Energy Programme Manager. I look after Skills for Energy, which is one of EEEGR's core programmes. So we work with anybody and everybody that's looking towards the energy sector in terms of their future career, or kind of given where the industry is at just now. I suspect going forward, we'll be working with individuals that are looking to move around within the sector. You know, if there's redundancies and things of that nature, then we'd support those individuals in retaining their skill set within the industry. So we work with anybody from students through to the military, to job centres, schools and colleges, universities. As I said, anybody and everybody that is looking towards this industry in terms of their future. It's an exciting time for the sector. So not just within this region, but up and down the country and across the world, it is an exciting time. There's a huge amount going on. It's an industry that's not always kind of first in people's thoughts. So what we kind of take for granted that when we switch a light switch on, the lights will come on, and that's just what happens. We don't necessarily think about what goes on in the background. And so we're here ultimately to really push that idea that this is that light switch. There's a whole range of jobs that sit behind that, that we can encourage individuals to think about. We need lots of people. So I've been very careful there not to list out as to how many people, but we need lots of people. There's going to be lots of opportunity for individuals moving forward. And some of those are in roles which don't exist yet. So we can talk about what's happening now, and to an extent we can give a bit of prediction as to what's coming in the future. but we don't know for sure exactly what that will be. And that's part of the reason that the industry is as exciting as it is, and particularly when we're talking to students, something that we should really push forward is that idea that actually these are jobs that we can't tell you exist yet because we don't know about them. So even if you've got somebody that's looking at potentially thinking about gaming and that side of things, technology and AI and everything of that nature, there's going to be huge within this industry. It already is a growing area, and that's certainly a skill set that will be needed, so that there's a role there for everybody. And ultimately, excuse me, these roles will be needed to transform the UK's energy system, so that there's lots of a target now for net zero emissions by 2050. And if we're going to reach that, we're going to need a lot more people to fulfill those objectives. So I've got a graphic just on screen here. So I've nicked this from the National Grid's Building the Net Zero Energy Workforce report that was released in January 2020. So this gives an idea as to the scale of what's to come. So looking at 2020, so obviously last year, you can see that the figures are really ramping up as we move towards 2050. And as I said, that relates back to the government's targets for net zero. So it gives a really clear idea as to the sheer growth that's predicted within the energy sector. And similarly here, so obviously these are estimates, so don't take the numbers too much to heart, but this gives an idea as to the number of jobs that are going to be coming within region over the next few years. So high numbers down in the south where we are just now, and I think the majority of people are on the call just now. I don't know, it's very hard to know who your audience is when you can't see them or hear them, but I'm assuming the majority in the southeast. So those numbers there you can see relating to the area that we're all working in. These are big numbers, and as I said, there is an opportunity for all within that. So some information here. I know this is clean energy, so I have included a little bit that perhaps isn't quite so clean, and I won't read through them kind of line by line, but again, this gives you a bit of an idea as to the scale and the growth that's predicted. And one point that I will really draw attention to is that in the east of England, so in East Anglia, there's over 800 businesses already operating in offshore wind alone, which employ 12,000 people or thereabouts. So again, to give you an idea of the sheer scale of this industry, those figures that are on screen just now give an impression as to what's there and what really does sit behind when you click that light switch. So looking and thinking about, I know that your roles, or I believe that your roles are majority teachers and careers leads and roles that are working directly with students. So one of the questions that we are asked to look at is the skills that are required to work in the energy industry. I've given some examples there. It's not an exclusive list. These are some ideas that we came up with. And these are pretty generic. So as you'll see there, ultimately, really, you could apply those skill sets to any role within any job. And it's what's really key to point out, and something that we struggle with in terms of getting the message across, is that it's not just engineering. The skill sets that are required are so much broader than just the engineering side of things. And as I keep saying, there really is a role within this industry for anybody and everybody. So this slide here so gives some examples as to the pay levels and the types of role that would be required. These are a whole variety of roles, so everything there from welders through to administrators, through to crane operators, ROV pilots. It gives a couple of examples as to the nature of the roles that are available, but there really is everything available. So my colleagues within the East of England Energy Group, we've all worked in very different roles. None of us, as far as I can think just now, none of us are engineers. We've all crafted a role for ourselves to an extent within the energy sector. I'm not an engineer. I've been with EEEGR for about 6 going on 7 years. Prior to that, I was with an organisation called 3Sun, now Worley. Again, not in an engineering role. So I started as an administrator, moved into HR. I've worked in logistics. I've worked in the training side of things, and now carrying out the role that I complete within EEEGR. but I've never been inside a turbine. I've never been on a platform. It's a completely different area from engineering, but nonetheless, all of us that do roles such as HR, marketing, administration, we're all just as valuable within the sector and just as needed. And at those numbers which we saw on the slide previously, as I say, indicate that sheer level of growth. That's not going to be possible without all of us sitting in the office side of things and doing slightly different roles. Not always the pictures that you see, so more often than not we see images of individuals climbing turbines, and that's kind of what tends to get the photos, and that's what you tend to see in your own mind when you think about these roles, but it really is so much broader than that. So relating to that then, which school subjects are relevant? And potentially all of them. So it's really important that for your students, they think about what they're passionate about, they think about the direction that they want to go into, and they think about how that might relate to a role within the sector and a role that they want to do in the future. That said, if they have got a specific role in mind, what's really important is that they do their research and have a look at how their school subjects will overlap. So if they are looking at the engineering route, they need to think about which subjects they will need to study and which subjects they will need to progress with in order to make that a reality in the future. And there's lots of different pathways. So the one that's missing off of here is probably T-levels, and that will become a pathway in the future. But anything there from A-levels, degrees, apprenticeships, internships, this is all relevant experience and all relevant qualifications in relation to the energy industry. So some useful websites here for you. And these are just a handful. I spoke with my colleague on this earlier today, and I'm sure there are many, many more. The Skills for Energy website is on its way, and we will be providing much more resource than we do currently. So if you have a look at our current website, it's fair to say it's a bit naff just now, but that's all set to change. We'll have resources on there for all of you that are on the call. So lots of information about apprenticeships, routes into the industry. We'll have some information about who to talk to, where you can look for the information that you need. That will all become within the Skills for Energy website, which we're hoping will be launched later this month. There's some others listed there as well. So EEEGR is the organisation that I work for, and there's some information, more general information about the industry listed on there, some specific information about apprenticeships on a couple of those as well, and some really interesting information more generally about careers within the sector and how you can look to access them. So I think that's about it from me. So Esme, can I ask you to take the floor, or the virtual floor, please?
Yeah, of course. I'll just share my screen as well. Thanks, Gemma. So I'm Esme, and I'm actually really proud to say that I'm one of those people that keeps the lights on, and when you flick the switch, I'm behind there. So I'm actually the Deputy Site Manager for Siemens Gamesa Renewable Energy, East Anglia 1 wind farm based in Lowestoft. Siemens Gamesa are a wind turbine provider, so we have designed, produced, built and installed these wind turbines, and I'm part of the team which then services them. So we will be servicing these wind turbines for Scottish Power for hopefully years to come into the future. So just a little bit about how I got to where I am. So I started off doing A-levels at school. Wasn't really sure what I wanted to do then, so I kind of just picked subjects that I was interested in, and I did focus more on kind of maths, physics, geography. Didn't really know what to do with it, so went to university because I think back then that was just the natural progression route, and I studied environmental geophysics. I was really lucky and also really interested in working with a business through that, so I got a year in industry placement with Gardline Geosurvey based in Great Yarmouth, which is where that lovely picture of me in the orange suit comes from. And through that I worked as a geophysicist offshore, and that involved going out and actually looking at the seabed and what was below it to decide whether it was suitable for wind turbine foundations, drilling for oil and gas, various different things. And that's really when it started to click that I was interested in being involved in renewable energy. I kind of can almost remember the moment of bobbing alongside a wind turbine and just looking up at it and thinking how impressive it was. So when I went back to university later that year, I focused my studies a little bit more on renewable energy. And I then applied to do a master's in energy engineering and environmental management. I was really lucky to be sponsored by Scottish Power through that. They paid for my master's degree, but it also meant I got a really great exposure to the industry as well. They took us to view various different wind farms and hydropower plants. And also the course at the University of East Anglia has great links with Gemma and the Skills for Energy and EEEGR team. So I was involved in lots of different events that they ran, and it meant there were great links with businesses in the local area. So we got to go and visit people such as CJAX and see a bit like what they do, what roles could look like. When I finished that, I was still a little bit lost. I actually went traveling for a year and I came back, and I was lucky enough to join Gemma and the team at EEEGR. So for my career, and I've left the first one on here from when I worked at the student union at the University of East Anglia, because I think it's really important for young people and everyone to realise how valuable those work experience opportunities pre-university or even throughout their studies are. The kind of transferable skills that Gemma talked about earlier, a lot of those you gain through those different work experience opportunities, and emphasising those on things these and applications really helps. So I've done a lot of work in restaurants and cafes and worked in leadership roles there. I then did time with Gardline Geosurvey as a geophysicist. I then spent, I think, a year and a half, I can't quite remember how long I was there for, with the East of England Energy Group. And through that, I was planning the events and helping out with the marketing, which meant it was a really great opportunity for me to meet with other local businesses. I learned loads there and got lots of experience in project management, budgeting, all sorts of things like that, all of these different transferable skills again, which supported me in my application for the job that I do now. So at the moment, as I said earlier, I'm the Deputy Site Manager at the East Anglia Wind Farm for Siemens Gamesa. We have the service contract, and my main responsibilities there are managing the team of technicians who go offshore every day. I'm also involved in the daily operations, so making sure that our planners get our technicians to the wind farm smoothly, helping to manage crisis if it happens. Luckily, it doesn't happen very often, and most of the time it's not really a crisis when it gets down to it. It's normally someone feeling a bit seasick. But all of that stuff is part of my job. It's different every day. I haven't had a quiet day yet. I've been there for 4 months, and there's all sorts of skills that I've used for that, and actually not that much of it has been the technical knowledge that I've learned through my university education. A lot of it has been my more practical, project management experiences or the people skills that I've learned through roles as a team leader or something like that. And actually the kind of more technical side of it, I'm very much learning on the job. So a role like mine, you definitely wouldn't need to go through the university route to get to. It's definitely something that you get to in different ways. And I just wanted to talk a little bit about the different roles that are available at a site like ours. So this is the kind of jobs available at an offshore wind farm in the service team. I will say this is just for our Siemens Gamesa service team. There is almost the equivalent for this for the Scottish Power side. So this is how many jobs are available in Lowestoft for just that one wind farm. On top of this, there's also all sorts of different project management roles, but this is our daily operations team. So we have a large group of technicians. I think we've got 14 site-based technicians at the moment and about 20 traveling. So lots of people keeping those turbines spinning every day for us. We have our senior technicians. They are responsible for like planning future works, and if there's a problem, looking into it and trying to figure out what we need to do. Do we need to order new parts? Do we need to get, you know, a jack-up vessel in to take a blade off the wind turbine? All sorts of things like that. We also have a planning team. So this is a group of people who look at what work needs to be done that day, who we've got available, what boats we've got available, what the weather's going to be like, and use all of that information to create a plan for everyone and what we will do. And then obviously we have a huge warehouse full of parts that need to be managed, and that's what our operations coordinators in stores do. So lots of different roles. In addition to that, we also have the support of EHS specialists, people that make sure we're meeting certain safety regulations and making sure everyone goes to work and comes home safely every day. There's my role and the site manager's role, and we also have quite a large commercial projects team. So only a small proportion of these people are actually technical based, and there's all sorts of different opportunities there as well. And like I said, this is just for one wind farm in East Anglia. For Scottish Power, they're planning on another 3. So you can imagine that this number will grow quite significantly for that. And I also just wanted to show this map. So this is the map for all of the wind farms that are being planned, are pre-construction, under construction. Only these ones in dark blue are actually running already. And those 12,000 jobs that Gemma talked about earlier are all helping keeping those running every day. But these paler colours, those are either going through their consenting processes and those jobs haven't come up yet, or even looking at these lines around their patches of seabed which they're bidding off for future wind farms. So if you think about how many people are currently employed for the wind farms that we've currently got, and kind of look at how much that's going to grow in the future, especially in our region, there's masses and masses of opportunity for young people to get into offshore wind. And there's loads of different ways to get in there as well. It's not just you have to be good at school, go to university and get a good degree. Definitely not. And actually the majority of the team at the site that I work at now have not gone through that route. We have quite a lot of apprentices. We actually have 6 at our site at the moment, and it's really well respected in the industry because you're taught and kind of nurtured through that whole process. And some of the guys that come out of our apprenticeship program are the best that we have at site. We have graduates like myself. There's a couple of other people at site that have gone through university. A lot of people in the engineering design team up in Hull have gone through university and have got graduate roles there. We have quite a few people at site who are ex-military, whether that's technicians or even the planning team, or actually our site manager is ex-military. New starters, people that have never worked in the industry before and maybe not had a job apart from like I would have had before, working at a restaurant or a cafe. And then lots of people as well who have cross-skilled from oil and gas or other areas as well. So there's lots of different ways to get across, and I would definitely emphasize that it's not just about going to university and getting a good degree. If it's something you're interested in, there's lots of opportunities, and especially here, I think East Coast College runs lots of great programs, and they get a lot of people into various different apprenticeships around East Anglia. So quite short and sweet, I'm afraid. Didn't really know much more to cover, and Gemma covered a lot of it before, but there's definitely lots of different opportunities, and there's going to be so many more coming up.
Great. Thank you so much, Gemma and Esme, for giving up your time today to give us those presentations. Very useful and very informative. We have had one question that's been posted. Do you offer virtual work experience programs or taster sessions?
Esme, that's probably one for you, but yeah. I will just answer in the broader sense. So, so those types of experiences at the minute, I think are probably relatively hard to pin down. That said, we are looking at building all of that resource into our website. So we're working with different companies across the sector at the moment to try to get as much of that as possible videoed, so that we can have that available for the future. There's already some resource on our website which you can have a look at, some resource which came from our event last year. So that's all still available. And in terms of the work experience, I'm more than happy if people have got specific inquiries around that, then I do have a slide with my details on, which I didn't show, but I'm more than happy for my details to be shared if I can help on that front. Esme, I don't know if you want to pick up on anything specific from Siemens' side of things.
Yeah, so it's not something that I'm aware of, and I'm pretty sure every site will run it very much on what they feel like they have the capacity to offer. But I would support Gemma in saying that if it's something you're interested in, or you've got students that would be interested in almost like a day in the life or a week in the life of someone, let us know and we can see if we can support it. There's lots of different technologies available now to let us do that, and we're definitely keen to support if we can.
Great, thank you both. And yeah, we'll share your contact details then, Gemma, if that's okay, if people do have any specific inquiries around virtual work experience. I think there is one other question just in the Q&A session. You mentioned T-levels. How do you think they will help the sector?
I think it gives another route in. I think that there's still a lot to be discovered on that front. So I think the sector are probably still getting to grips with that to a certain extent. And certainly I know the education providers are still getting to grips with it as well. But it's certainly going to give another route, another way to get that experience and a slightly different pathway in terms of in terms of it not being fully classroom based and getting some real world experience. I think that's going to be really key. But I think a lot of that is still to be found. So again, if we can work with individuals in relation to T-levels and things, then we're more than happy to do so. Yeah, I think they're still going to be finding their feet with that. But the more information that we can put out with regards to T-levels, the better, because I think there's still a fair amount of confusion out there with regards to how they're going to work.
Thank you, Gemma. And I'm just going to move across now to our next speaker, but I believe Esme and Gemma are going to stay with us for the Q&A panel session at the end. So thank you again for those very informative presentations, and thank you for staying with us till the end. I'm just going to move across now to Sarah Osborne from EDF Energy, who I think is with us now and is going to give the next presentation. Sarah, I'm just going to hand the screen over to yourself. Oh, sorry, I'm just seeing a message actually that Sarah is having some audio issues at the moment. Always a problem at the moment, isn't it? These technical issues. I believe though that we do have Lynne McDonald from UK Power Network with us now. Lynne, are you able to just step in and do your presentation now while we try and resolve Sarah's technical problems?
Yep, happy to do that.
Thank you very much,
everyone. Let me just share my screen. Let me know when it comes up and I'll get going. Oh, can you see the screen okay?
Yes, I can see it. Thank you, Lynne.
Fantastic. Afternoon, everyone, and thank you again to the team for the invitation. So I'll give just briefly a bit of background to myself and my career, just set in context my current employer, and then just talk about some of the opportunities, and then certainly open to collaboration opportunities moving forward, and then also suggestions of where we can support that link, obviously, to bring on the future employees of the energy sector. So briefly, I'm Lynne McDonald. I'm an engineer and senior manager at UK Power Networks. I've been with UK Power Networks for 10 years. And my main focus over my 10-year career in industry has primarily been on innovation and smart grids, and importantly, keeping customers central to our net zero pathways. And probably which I think is quite helpful, and you've heard from some of the other panelists, is how did I come to be in the role that I'm in? Well, a bit about my career path, and I think fundamentally this is probably the area where both industry, teachers and educational employees can support young children or even later learners to come into the sector. I've had quite an interesting sort of approach to my career, standard in terms of education, but a lot of different vocational support and industry placement. So my education, I went to school in Scotland, you could probably tell by the Scottish drones. And then following school education, I took up a graduate scheme of my Masters of Engineering at the University of Strathclyde. My studies were in electronic and electrical engineering. But throughout both my school and university career, I always took industrial placements or did weekend and evening work to try and highlight that skill set of time management, responsibility. So for example, at school, I got involved at House of Fraser's, but I was also involved in doing the economic books every week to close what stock was in, what stock went out, and planning ahead, which supported me to increase my sort of economic skill set and literacy skills. I also worked at a veterinary surgery, pets and vets, because I was dabbling in which choice to go for. And I think that's probably the area where at least I've always imparted on those that I mentor, is always to try and get that practical experience over and above the theoretical. And then also during my university career, I specifically selected a university that was linked to the IET Power Academy Scholarship Scheme that still runs today. So the IET is an institute for engineering and technology, and they have an industrial placement link into industry. So that means that if you're awarded a placement, each summer of your university career, you go and do industrial work. And at the time, I was selected for the scholarship with what was EDF Energy Networks, and that's now called UK Power Networks. So that meant over my 5-year master's degree, I came down to London every summer, and I had real world, real industrial projects to deliver. It exposed me from the theory books into application, and it gave me some professional confidence of where I could see my skills being best used for, but also gave me the confidence to understand that the career pathway that I was going down was one that I could see longevity and passion moving forward with. And then within that, also doing Duke of Edinburgh, doing other fashion related activities and sports. And I think that's important for any individual coming into industry or the professional place, is that there's great examples that they can take from, albeit if it's not engineering applied. There's discipline in time management, responsibility, delivering work to cost, and also managing stakeholders through the process. So briefly, who is UK Power Networks? Well, UK Power Networks is what we call a distribution network operator, and we manage, operate the electricity network in the London, South East and East of England. We serve over a quarter of the UK's population in delivering electricity supply, and ultimately we're a big facilitator for customers' net zero plans. And I think this puts us in a very positive place as an industry, and hopefully a great place to work with those in the line to attract employees into the sector, because there's a really big world focus on climate change, really good galvanised green grassroots support, and something that I think really piques everyone's interest, particularly at school level, which is fantastic, to try and get that insurgence of new staff into the industry to really meet the challenges and opportunities that face us as society. And within those changes, obviously, for UK Power Networks and for the UK as a whole, I think we're in a very positive position in attracting the right skill set, because we have been the leader in setting out clear targets for net zero by 2050. And I think with that, there's also clear support into school education and support in that link on science, technology, engineering and mathematics and the arts. And this is genuine, so we're seeing genuine change. So I think for me, if you're a young child or you're in your learning process, you can see that maybe you can play a pivotal component in making the change that you wish to see. And I think that's, at least I've been very fortunate in my 10-year career as an engineer. I've directly seen the engineering programs that I've led creating a very positive imprint for customers and society. And as I say, if your nana's proud of the work that you do, then you're not going too wrong. And you can see the real difference that you're making with your engineering skill set, which I think is a really positive thing for us to promote as an industry into the work that we're doing and giving that real world experience. There's a lot of change, and I think certainly in the energy industry, what we're observing, and that will be very apparent to each of us on the phone and for those that we're encouraging into the sector, is we're now seeing that digitalisation in the home with the introduction of the smart meter through suppliers. We're now seeing people influencing their usage of energy through voice control. So again, really exciting things, all reliant on technology, stakeholder engagement skills, design and product development. And there's a lot of expanding areas around cybersecurity. So there's certainly a big area of expanding the skill set that the energy industry is asking for, and also an area for us to support students in that learning curve as well. And you've got this future energy world that we're painting out to 2030. It looks like a complex image, but primarily what you're looking at is a very connected energy world. And within that, you're looking at key conversations, people being able to work in teams, working both within their speciality and out with it. So having both depth and skills, but then also breadth and wider appreciation. So it's looking for building individuals that are multifaceted in key themes and also with the appropriate personal traits. So those that are quite keen and passionate, or honing that passion on key themes to get people involved in the industry. A wee bit about UKIPR networks as well is that it's interesting. I mean, the UK is sitting at a global stage. UKIPR networks, as it stands this year, we're recognised across the globe as the #1 smart grid across the world, as identified by the Singapore Power Industry Index. So we've got a really good attraction message. To basically achieve the net zero pathway, we must enable a smart grid. And to create a smart grid, we must rely on people. And of course, to encourage a diverse pool of people to support conviction in those net zero plans, it's working with yourselves on this call today to understand how we can connect industry, provide exposure, and also reveal what it is and what it does mean to be an engineer in industry and the varied roles that take place. So for me, I think the future of energy at this time is very exciting. It also presents future exciting opportunities. To paint a sort of a day in the life of me as an engineer for UKIPR Networks. I mean, pre-COVID, I was traveling internationally to do technical knowledge sharing. Of course, that's moved like today to more digital formats at this time. I'm working with collaborators in academia, with manufacturers, going through to the design work, testing devices, introducing that to stakeholders, having meetings with stakeholders, doing focus groups to hear firsthand what works for them, what they need. So as an engineer, we're developing services that meet the customer's asks, and we're taking on new ideas. So for me, I couldn't stress enough, it's certainly an interesting time. And certainly I'm open to understand where we can collaborate and support both young and later learners to become part of that journey with UKIPR Networks and others in the sector, to ensure that we're painting the best future to get to us to zero carbon. So it was a very brief wraparound just to advocate engineering and basically a STEM career is very interesting. And so my key ask would be, I'm keen to hear from you and collaborate and provide opportunities to connect you with those in my organisation.
Thank you very much for your time today, Lynne. Thank you for that very informative presentation, and great for passing out your contact details there. I'm sure some of the delegates will be quite keen to get in contact with you as well and see how your organisation can support them. Hopefully you're going to be staying with us just for the panel section at the end. I'm sure there'll be some questions that are coming in. We don't seem to have any at the moment. I just wanted to pose one question to you, though. I did like the way that you were talking about how it was that we can inspire young people to move into the energy sector around them being able to see the difference that they are making. Are there any other ways that we can encourage young people to give some serious consideration to the energy sector and inspire them to want to make that change and that difference?
Yeah, I think primarily I would flag, I think the one area is certainly getting into schools, highlighting, for example, the difference it's making to individuals in their own home. I think we've got some great examples at EEEGR networks of projects where we're supporting households in fuel poverty. So it's really highlighting the fact that this engineering product over the few years, how that's made a difference in the home. I think if I go back to my younger brother, who's also followed an engineering career after myself and my twin sister, is when I remember when he's 10 years my junior, when he was taking that venture into looking into science and technology, it was more about piquing interest. So it was more about bringing to life. So I think it's important for us to basically bring in role models into the classroom. I think second of all, doing virtual tours, I think particularly also with the current environment that we find ourselves in. So really bring to life what that role looks like. They can recognise themselves in that future role in energy industry. I think the other area is just, for example, if I take my brother going back sort of 10, 12 years ago, computing science was quite a big theme. It was quite relatable to gaming. And I think that's where it was very positive with some of the developments where we were getting individuals to do data analytics and design. So I think primarily it's around projects. It can be task-based. For example, you can ask them, paint your a day in the life of, and you can show them how they can make a difference to water saving and to energy saving, or building like an LED to turn, basically looking at a switch to turn an LED. So I'd say practical tools is really, really important.
That's fantastic. Thank you, Lynn. Schools are keen to access virtual opportunities with a child. Okay, so more a comment than a question. Just for the panel, obviously I asked Lynn what she thought we can do to inspire young people to move into the energy sector. Gemma and Esme, I was wondering if you had any other contributions to Lynn's answer as well.
There's a lot going on just now. Certainly we're involved in probably more now virtually than we ever have been before. And so that virtual inspiration piece is really something that's it's developed hugely, particularly over the last few months. So to give you an example, we've got Green Skills Week coming up at the beginning of April. So that's an initiative that's being delivered by Speakers for Schools. I think it's the 6th to the 9th of April. So avoiding the bank holiday. We've got a couple of days already booked out within that, so an opportunity for 2 groups of 30 students to participate in a project that is specifically related to the energy industry. So we'd certainly encourage them to go and have a look and see what Speakers for Schools are doing. It's not just our opportunities either, that there'll be a whole host of other opportunities that are available during that week. But there's a huge amount going on just now. There's a lot of organisations, I think, that have realised that the virtual world suddenly opens a lot more doors and gives a lot more opportunity for them to promote their own organisations and their initiatives, and ultimately give their support to the next generation of the energy workforce coming through. So if perhaps, Glenn, I can get some bits and pieces together and forward some bits over to you, which you could share to the participants of this particular meeting. But we're seeing more and more come through. It really is ramping up just now.
That's great. So yeah, thank you, Gemma. I'd be keen to share those with the panel. Sorry, Lynn, were you just coming in there as well?
Yeah, no, I was going to just flag, I probably didn't mention, and I'm sure my other colleagues in the panel have something similar. I'll put it into the chat function. EEEGR networks also have a website. It's mainly aimed at 7 to 14-year-olds called Power Up. It primarily gives sort of access to both students and teachers with some resource materials. It also teaches about safety around electricity infrastructure, but it also kind of educates on like Thomas Edison, and really there's the sort of the creation of sort of the physics and mathematics behind some of the engineering we see today, and there's some really good free exercises. So I'll post that, but then I'm also quite open to be a conduit to my colleagues in HR. If there's anything you find really helpful on that website, do share. But if there's anything that you'd like to see more of, then that would be also helpful for us to take into consideration in our future plans.
That's great, thank you, Lynne. And I know, Gemma, you created a lot of good resources, didn't you, for your Skills for Energy Festival? That was on the 25th of November. So there are those resources there on the website as well. We have just had a question just come in from Louise. For our students leaving sixth form this year, could you tell me about apprenticeships and degree apprenticeships that will be available? Where would you recommend students to look for opportunities? Would that be your individual company websites? Do you like students to write to you speculatively? Look forward to hearing. Thank you.
Do you want me to take that one, or Lynne, do you want to have it?
If you're okay heading with that one, going with that one first, Gemma, and then we can come to Lynne.
So I shared some website links just within my presentation, and Glenn, I'll send those across to you again so that that you can share those as well. There is an element of keeping an eye on what comes out as and when it comes out. So for example, I'm trying not to do too much of a plug here, but the EEEGR eShot will list out a number of news stories, and it often has information on there about apprenticeship programs as and when they launch. It's free to sign up to, so you can sign up on the homepage of the EEEGR website. So by all means, have a look at that and get registered for that. We are looking to bring a lot more of this information together. We're very conscious that there's a lot of information out there, but it's not necessarily in one place just now, which does kind of complicate things a little bit. I'd also recommend talking to the local colleges as well. They should be well aware of the apprenticeship opportunities and different availability for different steps into the industry as and when they come online. So I'd certainly recommend that. There's a lot that's out there. It's just a matter of it. I think a big part of the issue is it's not all in one place just now. I mean, I don't know, Glenn, in your experience, if you find the same, if that's, certainly if there's feedback around that, and I think as Lynne was saying earlier on, if there's more that needs to be done, we would like to hear about that, because it's something that we can encourage the employers that we work with to really get that advertised in the right places. If they're missing something, then I'm sure they want to know about it.
Yeah, that's a good point, Gemma. I think it is quite fractured at the moment, isn't it, where those roles are advertised currently, and I think there does need to be consolidation there. Sorry, Lynne, I think you had a point you were wanting to contribute as well.
Yeah, I was going to raise, I mean, similar to most companies, we have a dedicated career webpage. There's opportunities from apprenticeships, engineering, development placements, and also industrial placements as well. I mean, certainly if I take my own career journey, so there's clearly portals, there's the way of doing things where you apply. I would certainly encourage any student where I used to write requests for consideration. I do look back with great amusement now looking where I am in my career, but I am also encouraged by my younger self at the right age, commending myself for roles where I thought a year's business placement doing an activity was what was the management skill of an engineer. But I think what was fantastic is I was confident enough that I had something that I could give a value, and I was with the merit of wishing to always learn, and I don't think that can ever be discouraged. So I have been approached throughout my career, either in person at conferences that I speak at, or for example through LinkedIn, and I think each of us on the panel and anyone I've come across in any industry is always very kind with their time, because we've all been in a similar place. Now, that doesn't always translate to you get a position, because there's a competitive process to be run, but it allows someone to give you that steer and that tip, sometimes that wee little tip in the right direction. Certainly at UKPER Networks, like the other websites, we've got a dedicated career page, and I'll make sure to share that with yourself, Glenn, to circulate. And I'll give you the named contact for my colleague Liz, who supports in the recruitment exercises. I'd also flag that anyone looking in the STEM arena, I would also promote both the students and the teachers and supporters to also look at the Royal Academy of Engineering and the Institute of Engineering and Technology, because even through your school and university years, there's some fantastic forums that you can get involved in. They also run similar, and I'm sure already the STEM community is already involved in this. They run I'm sure it's virtual at this time, but typically job roles where they bring industry in. And I think if I look back from the age of 14 upwards, I did placements at work where I wrote to them. I think there was a local wind farm, Proven Engineering, who was a pioneer in the wind blades development. So I'd encourage both, do the normal route, but don't be afraid of stepping out and being sort of confident in yourself and asking the question. No one can deter anyone enthusiastic enough to ask the question, but we will also, I think as an industry, we have to also support those that might not have that confidence, to make sure that we're always remaining accessible through those normal routes.
That was great. Thank you, Lynn and Gemma. So I hope that's answered your question, Louise. So I think what I'm getting there is, yeah, look at the traditional routes and also encourage people to do those speculative inquiries as well. That is a way of getting into the industry. I do have a question for yourself, Esme. I was quite intrigued by your presentation and the safety gear that you were wearing. I presume that was for some kind of cold water training. Can you just give us maybe a little bit of an insight into your day-to-day role and some of the challenges you may experience in your day-to-day operations?
Yeah, so that picture was me wearing a survival suit when I worked offshore as a geophysicist. So in that role, I would live offshore for however long the job was. Sometimes it was a couple of weeks, sometimes it was 10 weeks. And that was quite different from what I'm doing now. I'll talk about that role a little bit because it's quite interesting, but I would work a 12-hour shift. I'd live on the survey vessel, and it would be 24-hour operations. We'd be dragging various bits of survey kit behind the vessel. That data would be coming in. I would be looking at it, doing the initial quality check, and then if it was good, we would then go on to interpret that on the vessel for a client representative that was with us. So that was fairly kind of repetitive in day to day. You can't really do much else when you're on a survey vessel. There's only so much space and options. But for me now, it's very different. So I will go to work and every day will be quite different, but a big part of my role is people management. So making sure that the technicians are happy to be at work, that their well-being is all right, that if they've got any concerns, whether that's HR style issues or personal issues, I've got that duty of care. But also I'll have daily meetings with our customer who own the wind farm. So it'll be checking in with them, making sure that they're happy with our plan for the day. Have they got any issues? Has anything gone wrong overnight that we need to know about? And then throughout the day, it's a combination of various different projects, whether that's an improvement to the site or the way that the team works, whether that's at the moment we're trying to get helicopter support, so whether that's getting involved in arranging that. I'm actually currently planning a safety stand down day, so every now and again throughout the service campaign we'll just stop all operations and have a day where we focus on safety and the best way that we can all keep ourselves safe at work. Sometimes those projects will be communication based. Is there a retrofit that we have to do on the turbines? Do we have to go out and change a part? So it is really, really varied. Sometimes I feel a little bit out of my depth, I'll admit. I'm not an engineer, so I'll get involved in these things and I'll be like, oh, this is new. But it's just, there's so much learning going on all the time. You can't get bored. There's just no way of getting bored. And it does lead to lots of different kind of continuous development. And today I actually was on a workshop about learning what our contract involves and how we can meet the contract for the customer. So lots of different things in the day-to-day job. Hopefully soon I'll be going out to one of the turbines as well with the technicians to learn a bit more about what their day job is and what it's like for them every day, because it's very different from sitting in an office. So yeah, all sorts of various different things. Just to add on a point earlier when you were talking about different places to find opportunities, one place that I found very useful as a student both at school and at university was a website called GradCracker. So I think originally it was designed more at graduate opportunities, but they've also started introducing apprenticeships on there and also industry placements and summer internships, and it's all STEM based. So there's loads and loads of opportunities there. So I definitely encourage you all to take a look at that and to recommend that to any of your students.
That's great. Thanks, Esme. It's not a site I was familiar with, so thank you for sharing that. And we will make sure that all these resources are shared with those people who are attending today. There has been a couple of questions that have been popped into the chat just while you were giving your comments before. So one here from Jennifer. Are there any known inclusion or equal opportunity apprenticeship schemes in this area that you're aware of? And Lynn, it looks like you're nodding your head there. Did you want to come in on this one?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm recognising this across all the organisations on this panel and elsewhere, and I think it's fantastic that as an energy industry, we're very much keying in on the value of diversity and inclusiveness. And that's certainly something, both in my engineering and senior management role at EEEGR Networks, I chair our group called Empowered Community. So it's an employee-run group for employees, both to embrace inclusivity in the workplace, but also to support society. And that's a group we formed about 2.5 years ago. But it's certainly a value that we've had in place for a while, and very proud that the organisation was in the top 3 inclusive companies last year. But in terms of opportunities, there's been a few areas that we've been piloting and running as EEEGR Networks, which I'm sure others on the panel are also undertaking. So back in 2020, we had piloted a Trailblazer programme. It was specifically for apprenticeships for individuals from disadvantaged backgrounds. We've also been running a pilot, I think it's in central London, and that's actually connecting some of our major connections infrastructure projects and working with local community groups like Energy Garden and Community Energy South. So it's imparting skill sets on what is a solar panel, what does that mean in terms of energy, and then also bringing in what's also we term as disassociated groups, so those that might not have had the opportunity to participate in certain educational roles or the opportunity maybe to see a career in front of them. We're bringing them in, passing the skill set, bringing them through and actually taking them on site visits. So really hopefully both igniting their passion on science and mathematics, but then seeing that actually there's a career opportunity that if that's what they enjoy, there are different routes for them to get in to the profession. So that's certainly an area that we are continuing to focus on as an empowered community, and certainly working with our partners in engineering infrastructure projects. So it's not just about installing equipment and that's our job completed. It's more thinking about that community around that substation and those students or later learners that are served by that substation. How can they be exposed to it? And then through that exposure, does that support us in the future where we can actually bring them in and they can share really good ideas and be part of the employment group to bring us forwards?
Thank you, Lynn. That sounds really exciting. We just had a follow-on comment actually just asking whether or not you'd be able to post details of those projects just so we can read a little bit more, if that would be okay.
Yep, I'll quickly try and find links while we're speaking, or if not, I'll share it straight after this call with you, Glenn.
Great, thank you very much, Lynn. I've just got a bit of a broad question now for the panel. So do you see the region as being really at the forefront of clean energy and leading the way across the UK? I don't know if anyone... Thanks, Esme.
I'll start with that one, but I definitely think so. I think the statistic, it's around 52% of installed offshore wind capacity is currently off our coast. And that's only growing. That map I showed earlier, you can just see how many different projects are coming along, and then that coupled with Sizewell C, fingers crossed, it's just so many projects going on, so many opportunities. There's talks of looking into hydrogen in the region, so there's lots of development to come, and it's a fantastic place to be for it.
Thank you, Esme. I don't know if Gemma or Lynne, you had anything you wanted to comment on there?
Completely agree with Esme, and similar, you know, the maps that and the graphic that I showed earlier on shows the level of development. It shows the scale of what's coming within the region as well. There's no reason why not. I think you know, there really is no reason why not, but it's the likes of individuals that are on this call that need to promote that idea through to the next generation of the energy workforce coming through to make that a reality. But yeah, completely agree with Esme.
Thank you, Gemma. And I think, Lynne, are you just furiously trying to find those links, or sorry, did you want to jump in?
Both. I'm trying to multitask in tandem. Look, for me, the region, I think if you look across the UK, but then specifically looking at the local region we're talking about, things are changing. If I go back to the 1990s, we had very few distributed generators, and what I mean by that is solar panels and wind farms. And I think if you just take a drive or you take your daily walk in the local area, you can physically see in the horizon the fantastic difference that's being made. And behind that difference of the wind farms, the solar panels, the infrastructure that might be behind a brick building, and the underground cables and the overhead lined cables, is there's a whole host of fantastic diverse people that have created that, all from different walks of life, all different routes into their career. So for me, I'm quite impassioned to see that if you look at that horizon and see that wind farm turning, the solar panels glaring in the sunshine, hopefully that motivates us. That will continue. If you look at the UK government targets to get to net zero, we can't relent. For us to meet those targets, we must increase and enable continued connections of electric vehicles to get moving in transport, continued engagement with stakeholders, really thinking about accessibility. How are we ensuring that we're informing, educating and bringing on society along that net zero pathway? And to do that, you need a representative example of society in our workforce. So I think certainly the local area in question is very much central to that discussion, has a very important role because of the land space in terms of planning. And I think obviously you've got hopefully some aspiring engineers, data analysts, cybersecurity experts, really good people that are really focused about the stakeholder. Because I think engineering, if I think of my day as an engineer, my core competency is I'm a power systems engineer. But for me to deliver that service, I must be able to engage, think about someone else, be empathetic, bring a team along with me, have safety absolutely paramount of mind, but open to building new skills. So I think engineering is a very expansive role. And similar to when I remember friends or family or my brother considering that route, you can't go wrong with engineering because it keeps every door open. And it can take you international when, of course, flights are allowed. So I think, look, getting towards the net zero energy future, everyone has a part to play, and I think the UK is in a very good position, and it's important for us as industry to get really fantastic individuals as part of that workforce and keep it motivational and passionate so we get to the targets.
Thank you, Lynne. And it's been really positive to hear everyone's enthusiasm about this sector as well, the clean energy sector. I can see that Sarah is back with us. I'm going to try just one more time just to see whether or not Sarah has been able to resolve her audio issues. Sarah, can you hear us okay? Okay, I'm going to take that as a no. I can actually, sorry, I can just see that Sarah's just posted something in the chat which indicates maybe technical issues are still ongoing. I'm just going to ask lastly whether or not there are any more questions that we have for the panel. Just having a look in the chats, I can't see anything at the moment. So I'm just going to ask whether or not there was anything that they wanted to just contribute as a summing up. Then I was going to say thank you very much for your time today. So. Gemma, I don't know if we can start with yourself, if there's any kind of final note that you wanted to just put across to the delegates.
Yeah, so just there were a couple of bits still in the questions. I think somebody asked around opportunities for individuals across the piece that might have slightly differing needs in terms of their education and things of that nature. So yes, absolutely. I was in the midst of typing an answer and it disappeared, so I don't know where it went. But yes, we work on a project just now, which is working with students with additional needs. If anybody wants to hear a bit more about that, then I'm more than happy to provide some additional details. Somebody else also commented in the chat that it's fantastic to see an all-female panel in an area that is predominantly male. So yep, I completely agree with that. That's it. That is fantastic to see, and certainly there's a point around encouraging anybody to think about the sector, but we need to get the numbers of females, and well, we need to increase our diversity full stop across the industry. So so that really is a key priority for us just now too. But yeah, other than that, I think I haven't got too much more to add. I think I've done quite a lot of talking, so I'm happy with that. But yeah, so just to say thank you very much for inviting me along and giving me the opportunity to speak.
Thank you very much, Gemma. And Esme, anything from yourself that you just wanted to, any final points?
Yeah, again, thank you for having me to speak. I think I would just emphasize to anyone that's a little bit curious in the industry that, you know, there are so many different types of fantastic opportunities, and you can be an engineer, you might be fantastic at being organized, but not really be that interested in engineering. There's a role for you. There's all sorts of different opportunities, and no one should be discouraged by the fact that they maybe don't see themselves as an engineer. There's lots and lots of choice and lots of opportunities for people.
Thank you very much, Esme. And Lynne?
Right, first I'll commit to get the links, Glenn, just over you, because there's a few. I think I've just put the careers webpage in, but I think my final passing note would be, I think if I look at my own career over the 10 years, I think no one day is the same. I think the second being is that you have the very fortunate ability always to be humbled with new learning. I think that's a career journey that anyone can sign up to, with both the exposure with working with some other fantastic individuals, both nationally and internationally. And third would be the fact that there's a real opportunity to actually affect change, and see that imprint both on your own lifestyle and other lifestyles. And there's not many careers that provide that positive impact, particularly at a time of considerable change to meet climate change and net zero targets. And my only open call would be, I'm more than happy for those who's joined the call today to be a conduit and to support the navigation into EEEGR networks. So if I don't have the answer, I will certainly find a colleague that does, to support that. And then also, if you've seen anything similar to Gemma and Esme's points, if you have seen anything working best for your students or the company that you represent, or you've seen something really great, I am not remiss, and I'm sure those in the panel, of fast following, which is a nice word for copying others, if that can really help students to get an opportunity to see what an engineering or energy role is. And also noting that energy, as Esme said, isn't just about engineers. The skill sets that we rely on is very expansive. So thank you for having me. Apologies for the IS issues getting me in initially, but this is more of an introductory hello, and hopefully not a goodbye, but we'll see you moving forward.
Well, thank you. And I'd just like to say a big thank you to Gemma, a big thank you to Esme, and a big thank you to yourself, Lynne, as well, for coming on and doing some really informative presentations to us today, and for fielding all those questions that were thrown at you as well. I'd also like to say a big thank you to Sarah for trying to join us. Technical issues have beaten you this time, but thank you for sharing your contact information in the chat. For anyone that's on the call that would like to contact Sarah, her email address is there, and we will send out those resources and those links to people who've been on the call today as well. So a big thank you again. Really appreciate your time this evening, and I know that I found that very useful. I'm sure the other attendees have as well. So thank you, and have a lovely evening.